The hero talents for the next expansion are not okay. I think Oracle Priests will be the new augmentations and people don't seem to want that. Not to mention that the biggest issue is that most of these just don't feel like Warcraft anymore, and this lack of Warcrafty feeling killed Dragonflight for a lot of people. What the hell is an Oracle Priest? Ever since the latest hero talents have been announced with the respective dev interviews, the namings of some of these started to bug me even more. We knew about the names from BlizzCon, but didn't really think much about them since. I don't know what an Oracle Priest is, and no, reading the hero talents isn't supposed to answer that for me. The whole concept of hero talents was, as stated by the devs, to bring a flavor of the class, a fantasy of the class that people wanted to engage with, relate to, or become to life. Take Dark Ranger as an example, as one of the most iconic hunter identities in World of Warcraft. It has been a thing since Warcraft 3. It was the class of Sylvanas Windrunner, regardless of how you felt about her in the last expansion. It was so beloved by players that you now have an actual customization options for elves in the game. The Dark Ranger customization. With the advent of the hero talents, hunters can actually opt in to become a Dark Ranger hunter with a thematic black arrow design brought back to the specs. Now, whether the implementation of the sub-spec will be good or bad is not the point. The devs have opened themselves up to any and all feedback related to this core of the game. There are issues with all hero talents that the theory crafters, class leaders, and other smarter people already went into in multiple Wowhead articles, interviews, and podcasts. Hell, we covered the Lightsmith Paladin with Big Man Noble. The main concern is the fact that a lot, not all, but a lot of these do not feel like Warcraft, and this has been a growing fear over the last couple of months. But to eliminate that fear, you need to check our Patreon page because it supports this type of content and many more other videos coming into the future. You can also get your hands on some exclusive goodies just for Patreons, like 4K wallpapers with your character's transmog on them, bloopers, and much more. Plus, you will be supporting the MarcelianOnline team in making more content like this. Patreon.com/MarcelianOnline is the place to be, and the link is down in the description. Appreciate you. 2 hearts. Now, once again, I have no idea what the fuck an Oracle Priest is. We never heard of this concept in Warcraft before, so that we have something to associate it with. You know what we did hear about? And props to Asmongold for pointing it out: cultists. Why don't we have a cultist hero talent? How is Oracle more Warcraft than cultists when we literally had cultists in all of WoW's history? And I can say the same about a whole bunch of other hero talent name choices, like Fatebound Rogues. Fatebound? Why Fatebound? What about fate screams Warcraft to you? The concept of fate being an element of a fantasy universe does not really belong in WoW. A fantasy world where defying fate and not being bound to it has been more of a theme than orcs being bloodthirsty. Wasn't the whole theme of Legion revolving around Illidan being the faithful savior against Sargeras, and the concept being eventually dispelled by the respective demon hunter with the message that we make our own fate? Yet Fatebound is supposed to scream Warcraft and Rogue of all classes to us? I don't know. What's a Colossus or Slayer Warrior? These sound like buzzwords that kind of make sense for a warrior to have, but we already have Mountain Thane, which kind of existed already. I say kind of because it should have been Mountain King, like Muradin's hero class back in Warcraft 3. Why change the Thane? Why half-ass it? Dark Rangers kept their naming despite Dark Ranger already existing as a concept separate in the game. Why not just keep Mountain King again? And how come we don't get the Gladiator hero talents? This was an actual talent in the past, something people really enjoyed and asked for to come back. Varian was a gladiator, Kargath was a gladiator. And I can go on. Why does Red get to be a Herald of the Sun and not an Inquisitor? Are Paladins Sun Warriors now? At least Templar is there though. And maybe one of the most concerning ones is Warlock with Hellcaller and Diabolist. Let me tell you why this is bad. The concept of hell or any other version of satanic fantasy does not really exist in WoW. Warlocks get their evil power from the Twisting Nether or from the Fell Magic or whatever other retcon they keep creating. But going into hell and devil fantasy is kind of going off script. And if you think, who cares? Or why does it even matter? You haven't been paying attention. The fact that these concepts are so not Warcrafty raises a huge red flag that the game is being developed by people who just don't get it. They don't get what Warcraft is. They likely haven't played it enough, or if they had, they just didn't connect to what a lot of other people fell in love with. And this hasn't started now. Every time this happened in the past, the community received it with major backlash and the expansions themselves suffered for it. When Pandarans were announced, people lost their mind. And although MoP was arguably a much better expansion than Cataclysm, its overall numbers were drastically lower, and a likely big reason for that was the feeling of being alienated from the game with concepts that felt, well, alien. Same thing happened with Shadowlands, with the best example being Korthia. Nothing screamed, "This isn't Warcraft," more than this shithole of a zone. Although Zereth Mortis was an improvement on all fronts in terms of activities, feel, color, lighting, story and vibe, the zone was still not Warcrafty and didn't receive the praise it needed. And we come to the biggest point yet. Dragonflight as an expansion is also not Warcrafty. Sure, dragons are, mountains, mage towers, centaurs and tuskars are indeed Warcraft things, but still people didn't come back in the numbers that they should have. So why? Well, because the rest of the game felt different enough where you couldn't say it was Warcraft anymore. The story and characters are soft and overemphasize their feelings and emotions within the story instead of epic, cool, badass, heroic moments that made us love the game. Emotions have a place. Hell, I never felt more emotional than when Varian was literally destroyed by Gul'dan. But that was an epic moment. Tragic, but epic. We don't have that now, and the new class and race also suffers from the same thing. With years of epic dragons and dragon people in the game, they chose this skinny, genderly ambiguous creature to represent dragons within the player's hands when we could have had actually dragons, or at the very least draconids. All of these non-Warcrafty things have only pushed players away and making the game feel not like what WoW is supposed to be. Why do you think we got Metzen back? Why do you think the World Soul Saga is marketed as coming back home to what Warcraft is? Clearly the devs know and acknowledge that the formula has strayed away from what made WoW WoW. So why do we still get this half-baked, uncooked stuff like Oracle Priest, Aldrachi Reaver, Demon Hunter, Conduit of the Celestials Monk? Instead of cultists, liches, necromancers, betrayers, gladiators, inquisitors, shadow hunters, and blood mages. Why do Dark Ranger hunters, Sunfury mages get to keep theirs but the rest of us don't? And if you think it comes down to just the names, you are wrong again. A bunch of these talents seem to once again be designed by someone who either doesn't play the game or realistically does not engage with the character progression and building that creates an optimal performance. I'm not talking about cutting edge raiders or the 1% key pushers. I'm talking about average people that want to get into groups or play decently well to get their raid clears, mount and generally play an RPG where they want to make their characters stronger like you do in an RPG. Oracle Priests take some of the most negative aspects about priests and support skills in general and bake it into the concept that sounds great if you hear about it, but once you dive deeper into how it is envisioned and works in the game, you then realize that it further exacerbates the friction that stuff like Power Infusion created. Yet devs mention they don't want that. The intention of the hero talents has been clarified by the devs at BlizzCon, where they don't want the hero talents to feel spec-defining, to change how you play entirely or what talents choices you make. Yet we have Keeper of the Grove druids that have no hero talents unless they pick Force of Nature or Grove Tenders in their respective talent trees. Or Frostfire mages that will need to pick Meteor and Comet Storm talents together with likely options that augment these even more. For some classes it can get even worse where their talents directly fight against what the spec is supposed to do. Dark Ranger marksmanship hunters have Black Arrow that gives them so many aim shot procs that they mathematically cannot cast all of them, especially during True Shot, yet the game wants them to use Black Arrow during True Shot. I understand the devs are open to any and all feedback regarding changing, and that's great and also necessary for these hero talents, but the fact that some of them be it in the name or the actual design, feels so disconnected from what the game is supposed to be, brings real worry about the war within, the kind of worry we had with Azerite armor and covenants, the kind of worry we thought they learned about by now. I also understand that this may come off as us throwing dirt at the development of the game, but the reality is we love WoW and want to see it come back. Hell, we make WoW content exclusively and want to keep doing it. But we also want our game to be developed by people actually loving World of Warcraft and not their version of WoW they want to see created. That has proven in the past to kill the game more than revitalize it. This mistake was made with Diablo 4 as well, which likely killed the game from the community's perspective. These lessons have to be learned somehow instead of continuously repeated expansion after expansion, and if this kind of a video is what it takes to put it out there, then hello and welcome to Marcelian&Online. We also talk about how amazing Retribution Paladin was designed, since there are more good things happening in WoW now than there have been in the last 4 years, despite the topic of this video, and Retribution Paladin is one of them.